the BSO, we've always had some very close racing, some great racing, and it was always hard to determine who was the fastest out of all of us in our own friends' personal racing group here. One week it would be one guy would be the quickest, and then a couple weeks would go by, the other guy would catch up to him, now he would be the quickest, and we would alternate throughout the summer. And it was always hard to say overall who was the best car for that particular season. We ended up trying to make your typical list, a top 5 or top 6, depending on how many people we had, and using the call outs and all that. But the problem is that it's hard for all of us with our daily lives to continue to show up week in and week out, which would cause problems with locking up the list or people not showing up for a race. And it was hard to do a whole season like that. So I tried to figure out how can we do something to determine who's the quickest within our own little group and to kind of push us to becoming the fastest altogether. I decided to come up with a point series, which would use the Traxxas DTS1 tournament system and do sort of like an NHRA style qualifying, seeding, and points system. The layout was very simple. You got 2 qualifying passes, one on the left lane, one on the right lane, and that would determine the first round matchups. After that, it was just straight eliminations from there on. You win, you move on, you lose, it's over for you. So this allowed some flexibility compared to running a list. Now, if you didn't show up, and because you couldn't, now you just don't get to score any points, but you're not eliminated or you didn't lose anything. You just have to make up for it in another event. This also rewarded the guys that would show up week in and week out because now they had a higher chance of getting more points. So I kind of liked that it would reward people of giving them a chance to come out. But if you couldn't, it wasn't the end of the world. So on this particular race day, we had 5 people show up, which means the first round would have a bye run. Top qualifier after both passes in your left and right lane would earn this bye run, and the bottom 4 would be seeded from fastest to slowest. Because of this, it's always interesting to see what someone's qualifying strategy is going to be. You get 2 passes, so you can go all out on your first one, but if you don't make a clean pass, now you're going to be in that situation where you have to hit it on your second one, or else you could potentially be in the hardest matchup to start your race. I also added a little bit to the ante, giving the fastest pass in qualifying an extra 3 points. So this was just kind of like an extra little tiebreaker type point that if someone was equal at the end of the year, maybe these little qualifier extra points would determine a winner. So the qualifying passes are done in pairs. Reaction time doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who gets to the line first. It's all about your ET. You go down in the left lane, set a pass. You go down in the right lane, set a pass. So it's equal. Everybody gets a shot in each lane. Whatever time is your best out of those 2 runs is your qualifying time. Our first pair of qualifiers were Matt and Adam. Adam is pretty much running the exact same car as he ran last year. He did not make any changes over the winter. Adam's car was always fast to race against, so it was cool to see did our changes and our ideas over the winter work, or is he still fast enough to keep up or beat us?
Adam's car's working, man.
Not at all. So a lot of top end at the end of that pass for Matt, and that gave him a very slight qualifying lead after the first qualifier, just edging out Adam by 1/100th of a second there. Our second qualifying pair was now myself and Nico. Nico came and made a lot of changes. This is a whole new car that he used to run from last year. So now this is a 2-pole setup in a carbon chassis with that brand new C10 body. He was just starting to try to get this thing dialed in, but I knew he wasn't as fast as he was last year at this moment. In my mind, again, I'm not racing him, reaction time doesn't matter. I'm just gonna try to do a nice clean pass, and we'll see what I end up getting.
Like this, make it like this, make it not like this.
After that run, I actually had a very good launch. I was happy with it, and now that shot me to the top of the qualifying order after that. And Nico a little bit behind, stuck in the 270s. Our third pairing was Adam and Greg. Now, Greg was probably the favorite after last year's performance. He was consistently good across the whole year. Sometimes he wasn't the fastest, but most of the time he was. Now this is his new 2-pole carbon chassis build under this CUDA body that he's running. This would also mean this is Adam's second and final pass. So he made a decent first hit, and let's see if he can improve on that.
I had to let off, tap the brakes, and go again.
Adam didn't improve, but Greg got to put his first timestamp down. It was a little wild. I know he can go faster than that, but nonetheless, he's on the board, and he got to complete his first pass. We'll see what he does in his second pass. Again, these qualifiers are all random, so it actually turned out to be me and Nico again. This time it was both of our second runs. At this point, I know what I'm running. I hit my fastest time so far, but I think I could beat it a little bit. I'm gonna go for it here.
That was a good pass for Nico, but Mark beat me.
Yeah, I know. I got the faster.
Me too.
I might have got a little bit more wheel spin compared to the first pass. I kind of stay in the same sort of time range. Nico speeds up a little bit, but he's still going to be at the bottom of the list as he doesn't improve too much. So it all comes down to this last run. Second for both drivers. If either of them can beat my time, they'll knock me off of getting the first round bye. But if nobody beats me, I'm going to get the first round bye. We'll see how the seeding works out after that. My eyes are on Greg, as I know he can run a little bit quicker than the time that I set. It's going to come down to if he gets a nice launch, gets some traction, and if he can pull it off and stay stable.
Oh!
Qualifying was done. I ended up just holding off at the end there. Let's take a look at the first round matchups after the qualifiers were done. This particular lot that we're using isn't the greatest surface. There's cracks, there's bumps, the actual pavement isn't smooth, but it's the best location that we have in terms of it being level. There's no grade to this particular section of the parking lot, which is very important when you're racing without any sort of gyro or steering assistance. That being said, we also had an agreement at this point in the season that we didn't have any prep on our tires either. So these particular times that we're seeing are based on the lot conditions and what we have to work with at this moment. So round one started off with my bye run, but this is not your typical bye run, especially while we're using the timing system. This particular timing system is now going to determine the round after this based off the times that we run. So my bye run time actually matters as if I'm in a race still. So it's not like your typical no prep where you're doing a card draw and you can just cruise it down because you got lucky. Now the bye run has to be done quick as well.
No, I gotta send it. It matters.
So pretty clean pass. I set the bar semi-decent for this particular round. We'll see how the other matchups go, and if somebody can knock that time out of the way, they're going to get the bye, and I'm going to have to see who I'm going to race against. First racing matchup of this round was Matt and Adam. They were also the first qualifying pair, so they kind of got to scope each other out, and in that first qualifier they almost ran identical times.
Hit it again, Nick.
So it looks like Matt was on his way to winning this one, but he crosses over the center line, gets into Adam's lane, does get back in time, but the damage is already done. When you cross the center line, you automatically lose. That gives Adam a ticket to the next round, and Matt's night is now over. The next matchup was between Greg and Nico. Greg being the top qualifier after the bye run that I got, and Nico being the bottom qualifier. Also up for grabs was that bye run in the next round. So if Greg runs the pass that I know he can run, he's going to take that bye run, but he might not. Anything can happen in the race. Greg runs the pass that I know he could have ran before. He didn't get to do it in qualifying and get the bye run, but now it comes through now, and he gets probably a more important bye, as now he gets a bye in the second round, and that forces me into a race. And that race was against Adam. So Adam got the win after Matt crossed in the center line in their first race in round one. But I know Adam can still pull up a nice fight against my car if I don't get a good launch, or if he gets a great launch. One of my strengths seems to be pulling a great reaction time off the light. It doesn't matter if it was a sportsman tree or the pro tree light like we're using in this particular tournament, or even just a flashlight or a green light start. I seem to have a good grip on getting a great reaction time. For the most part, I can get a very good reaction compared to most of the guys here.
Cut there.
He treed the out of you, but if he didn't, you had that.
I don't think so, bro.
Yeah.
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 What was the time?
Mark did a 2:5:05 at 57 to Adams 2:5:74 at 40.
It's close.
Mark wins.
So there was a big difference in reaction time in this particular pass, but I also ran a quicker pass too overall. That gave me the win and moved me to the finals to face Greg, but it wasn't over yet for round two in terms of lane choice. Now that there's only me, myself and Greg left in the final, you could also determine who's going to get to pick left or right lane. What this means is Greg in his bye run has to beat the time that I set in the race against Adam. If he sets it, he's going to get lane choice. If I end up hanging on and keeping the fastest pass, I'm going to get lane choice in the final.
Kill it. I got it. That'll give me lane choice.
So I know the two-pole car for Greg has been a little bit hard to control at this point. He didn't get to put all the power in because it's just the stability wasn't there yet. I don't know in this particular pass what he was thinking, but he definitely launches it soft. He left a lot of time on the table, which pretty much handed me lane choice. Now I know Greg really likes to make passes in the right lane. When we're doing our test and tune, he always does his passes in the right lane here. He doesn't really like the left lane. So knowing this in the back of my mind, now that I have lane choice, I need every little advantage I can get. I'm gonna put Greg in the left lane where he's not as comfortable. Myself, I don't really see a difference between the lanes, but I just definitely knew that Greg really likes the right lane, and I know my car can do a similar pass in either lane. So this was a rematch of the first tournament we did, and Greg ended up beating me while he was in the right lane and I was in the left lane. So at this moment, he was actually the leader of the point series.
My car was all over the place. Yeah.
Good race, bro. Great trade off.
There comes my reaction again. Greg actually runs a really good reaction time for himself. He's usually about a 10th off the light. This time he was sub 10th. So he actually hits a pretty good light for himself. Greg had to let off, fought the car a little bit. That's that stability problem he's been chasing with that carbon car. That ended up giving me the win of the event. And at this time, that put me into the lead of the Point Series Championship. Unfortunately, at this point of the season and the year, this is when our daily lives started to take over. We had Alex, who didn't actually race in this event. He stepped back out of the RC stuff to focus on his Mustang project that he started a couple of years ago. Started out as a roller, now he finally got it together. We went to the track with him, we had fun. That time away took him out of the RC scene for a bit. Greg had that devastating fire over the winter, and finally at this moment he was able to get back into his house, complete the renovations on his house, move everything back in. And he also celebrated the birth of his first child. This cut down the guys available to continue in this series as they were dealing with more important stuff, which left a small group of us to continue tuning and trying to get faster and faster. The biggest gainer out of all that time was Nico. He finally started to dial down that two-pole motor setup in that carbon chassis. Got the new super body, as he always loved those cars, and that car was starting to motor at the end of the year. I never really got to race him in that trim, but I know the times he was running, and he almost would have been a lock to taking the lead of that championship had we kept going. I really hope to bring some more action like this to you guys. We have some really close, exciting racing. Unfortunately, we never really got to find out who was the fastest in this group. I had the points lead after 2 rounds, but that was not nearly enough. I wanted to run a minimum of 5 rounds or 6. Hopefully, next year's season, we can really get a lot more racing done, and I can bring all this action for you guys.